Hey guys, Hackersploit here, back again with another video, and welcome back to the Android penetration testing series. I haven't uploaded any video last week, and that was because I was researching the obfuscation video. I had a lot of research to do, and I discovered probably about 10 more ways one can do about that. So that video is still in the making, but in that time I decided let me make a video so that we can actually keep this series moving along, and we'll then wind up with persistence and obfuscation being the last video. So in this particular video I'm going to be showing you how to set up port forwarding so that you can access any Android device around the world, and instead of them being on your local area network, you're able to essentially get a Meterpreter session on them, whether they're in Tunisia, whether they're in Japan. You get the idea. You can essentially exploit a device and gain access remotely over the internet rather than on your local area network. And the whole the entire idea behind this video is, of course, going to be port forwarding. Now in this particular video we're going to be using Ngrok. Now, I know a lot of people don't understand how Ngrok works, even though I've made two videos explaining how it works. But in this video, I'll try and simplify it so that I can explain it in under less than a minute. All right, so the first question many people might be having is, what exactly is Ngrok? Ngrok, very simply, is a tunneling reverse proxy system that establishes secure tunnels from a public endpoint, such as the internet, to a locally running network service, while capturing all the traffic that is being transferred between that particular network service and the internet. So it essentially allows you to expose a port on your computer onto the internet. Now, when we talk about manual port forwarding, it essentially allows you to expose a port on your computer onto the public internet, which means anyone from around the world can access that particular port or that service on your computer, which is not a very safe thing to do. However, with the emergence of Ngrok, it essentially does not expose your real IP. It passes you through a reverse proxy system, which is excellent, which means you will be taken through a tunnel, which is much better for your security. And this system, or Ngrok, is most popularly used by web developers as they want to expose their local host or their web servers on the internet to share with the others, or for testing purposes. So for example, let me give you a simple example. Let's say I am a web developer and I've developed a web application that I would like my friend in Tunisia to use. That's a very simple example, right? So instead of going onto a web hosting service and uploading my web application there and then accessing it from a domain, I can say, hey, I'm going to send you a link via Ngrok, and that link will allow you to actually access my web server and consequently access that particular web application. So I'll download Ngrok, and then I would have Ngrok run on a particular port or a service that I have running on my computer. It doesn't need to be that way, but that is primarily how it's supposed to be used. And of course, once I send that person the link or the URL that Ngrok has provided me, that provides the reverse proxy connection back to my computer, they are able to access that web application without actually knowing my computer's IP address, as again it goes through a reverse proxy system. So that brings me to the second thing, which are, what are the current issues with traditional port forwarding and why am I not covering it as much? I've already covered traditional port forwarding in a video, but many people had the same problems, and these are the problems that they have. The first problem is many individuals have a static IP or have only one IP assigned to them by their ISP, which means port forwarding can cause complications, especially if you have various computers on a network. The second thing is they do not have access to their router administrator page, which means they cannot set up port forwarding on their routers. The other thing is, if you have a NAT connection set up, then it becomes a little bit more difficult to set it up, because you're essentially dealing with various other routers and access points if you are working wirelessly. All right, now, the last reason why I'm not covering traditional port forwarding, or one of the reasons why it's not popular anymore, is that real port forwarding, as I said, exposes your computer completely, or that particular port completely, which means your IP has been got for that particular computer, which, as you know, is not a very safe thing to do. All right, and that brings us to the advantages of Ngrok. All right, so Ngrok, first of all, is free to use. They do have paid plans, but those do involve additional features like the ability to run multiple tunnels simultaneously. And one of my personal favorites are, or one of my advantages that I personally enjoy of Ngrok, is it allows me to create TCP tunnels rather than simply staying with HTTP or HTTPS. All right, so it's all about what you want to do with Ngrok. All right, so let's get started. I'm currently running this on my laptop as my main workstation is being used for another. I'm essentially recording another video, and the process is currently in the process of recording. So anyway, so you want to go to your ngrok.com and you want to create an account. It's absolutely free. I've already done so. And once you download, once you've created an account, it'll take you to their dashboard, which is dashboard.ngrok.com, and it will automatically detect your operating system. I'm guessing you're running this on Linux. So you want to download it for Linux, and it'll be a zip file. So you want to unzip the file, and I'll open up my terminal here. I'm in my downloads folder, and I've unzipped the ngrok zip file, and it gives me with the executable here, which is ngrok, and I can execute it like so. It is a binary file. All right, now the thing with ngrok is you need to provide it with arguments, and these arguments I've already explained before, so you can check out those videos. So what it involves, or the entire process here, is as follows. So I run ngrok, and then I specify the protocol, which could either be TCP, if I'm exposing a particular port. If you're working with HTTP here, you can see you expose port 80 or a particular subdomain. And then, of course, if you're running Nginx, all of that good stuff, I've already explained this before. We are working with TCP. If you want to use HTTPS, you can set up the TLS tunnel right over here. But we are working with setting up a TCP tunnel because the payload we're going to be using is going to be the Android interpreter reverse TCP. All right, now to demonstrate that this is going to work, what I'm going to do on my mobile device is I am going to disable Wi-Fi and activate my mobile network, and I'll show you that indeed it does work, and this can be applied onto any Android device in the world. All right, so enough talking, let's actually move on. So before you can actually launch a TCP tunnel, you need to activate your you need to essentially activate your account. Or connect it rather here, which you can see right over here by essentially adding your authorization token. So you just copy this command right here and then execute it wherever you have stored the ngrok executable. So I've already done that and I'm ready to go. So now the commands, we can now get started with the commands. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to, of course, execute ngrok. We then specify the protocol. In our case, we're starting a TCP tunnel. And then we specify the port that we want to bind this service to. Now, if you want this to be binded to, for example, port 22 or port 80, if you are a web developer, what I would have done is I would have said HTTP port 80, and that would expose my my Apache web server over the internet. But in my case, I want to create a TCP tunnel, and I want to use the port 1234, as I'll do with all of these videos, so that you can actually understand what's going on. All right, so once I hit enter, ngrok will essentially bind and it'll connect right over here, and it'll tell me online. It'll provide me with my user account, the region, and the web interface to access ngrok, of course, and you have your forwarding right over here. So this is the TCP tunnel. All right, so you can see that the connection has been binded to localhost port 1234. So when we set up our exploit multi-handler or our handler, we essentially will use these settings right over here. So you will set your L host to localhost or 127.0.0.1, but it's preferred to use the 0.0.0.0 and the port 1234. We then now, when creating the payload, we need to find the IP of this particular TCP tunnel, and we have the port that is going to be the L port when we're creating the payload. So the first thing we want to do is we want to copy this the address for the TCP tunnel, which is great that they do provide that. And I'm just going to open up Terminator here, and we'll use the host command to enumerate it. So we'll just hit enter, and there we are. So it's going to tell us 0.tcp.ngrok.io has the address 52, etc., etc. So I'm just going to copy that, and now we can create our Msfvenom payload. All right, so we'll type in Msfvenom. Payload is going to be Android interpreter reverse TCP. Apologies if you can hear my keyboard, the microphone is slightly above it. So we then set our L host, and our L host is going to be the IP that we just got from the TCP tunnel, and the L port is going to be also displayed for us right over here. So one second, let me just switch over to the terminal, and we'll get the port right over here. All right, so we have the port there, and now we simply paste it in, and we have set our payload correctly, and now we can output this file, and I'm just going to save it onto root desktop, and I'll call it payload.apk, and I'm going to hit enter. So it's going to generate that payload for us, and it's going to save it on my desktop. All right, so now that it's once it's done, that we can actually set up our listener or our exploit, our listener and our multi-handler, so that we can actually see that this indeed does work. All right, so the APK has been generated. Okay, so the APK has been generated, and we can copy this to the web server, or you can transfer it to your device via USB cable. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy payload to my var www.html, which is where my Apache, this is my default Apache directory. And what I can do is I can start the Apache service. So service Apache 2 start, and I'm going to hit enter. And that will start the Apache service, which means I can access this particular web server on my device. So now, in terms of getting the APK onto your target's device, that will have to be done via social engineering. All right, so you can also do this in the same way that I did when I showed you how to embed the payloads automatically. You can do the same exact thing. You could just need to embed the payload that has the Ngrok IP or the reverse, the tunnel, the TCP tunnel, and its IP respectively. All right, so in my case, I've copied it there, and we can now use we can start up MSF console here, right over here. There we go. And one additional thing is, once we actually start the listener and we do get a connection, it does list this for us, which is awesome if you come to think about it. So now that we've started our Metasploit here, let me just increase the font size so we can actually have a better idea of what's going on. So we're going to say use the exploit multi-handler, set payload, and we're going to set payload Android. This Meterpreter. Reverse TCP, and we hit enter, and we're going to set the L host to, as I mentioned, 0.0.0.0, which is 0, not really O, and we set the L port to the port we binded the service to, which is port 1234, and once we're ready to go, we're ready to go. So if we just show the options here just to make sure we're ready to go, there we are, the options are set correctly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go onto my Android device, and I'm going to start recording. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to download the APK. So give me a second. Let me just start the recording process here. So I will start the recording process, and you should see my screen recording now. And I'm just going to open up Chrome, and I'm still on my Wi-Fi network, and I'll show you why. So if I reload the web page, you'll see the payload APK file is right over here. So I'm just going to download it. All right. So I'm just going to hit OK. Yes, that is done. Now, before I actually install the application, I'm going to disable Wi-Fi. You can see it right over here. Disable Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is off. I'm going to turn on my mobile data, and you will see it activated right at the top there. You can see those two arrows showing me that I do have internet connectivity. Now I am going to go into my file manager, and I'm just going to open up my downloads folder, and you can see the APK there now. So we can start the multi-handler. So I'm just going to type in run on Metasploit here. And I'm going to install the payload.apk. So you can see it's going to tell me this is the package installer, blah, 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 install. And I'm just going to hit next, install. And once that is done, it's going to start scanning. It should tell me that the application signature is not detected. There we are. So it's going to scan. And once I hit open, it should send the stage successfully. So there I've hit open, and there you go. Meterpreter session 1 opened, and it'll actually show you the ports that were binded and the reverse the reverse proxy connection. All right, so we have a Meterpreter session, and I've just showed you how to successfully use it and how to create your payload with Ngrok. So that, for example, if I say sysinfo, I have it right over here, and there you go. And I can show you this on my device right now that my Wi-Fi is currently not connected at all. All right, so if I terminate my mobile network right over here, you should see now that if I type in sysinfo once more, the connection should not be going through at all. All right, so I'll just hit sysinfo right over there, and you can immediately tell the Meterpreter is not getting any responses back, and we have successfully successfully set the payload to work on the internet, so it does not have to be on your local area network. All right, so I'm just going to stop the screen recording there. I'm just going to get out of there, and there you go. That's the video you guys have been asking for, and there you go. And of course, if you go ahead and look into your Ngrok session, it would have told you the sessions that were currently opened, and there you go. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know in the comment section on my social networks or on my forum at hackersploit.org, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Peace.